be there. I planned to be there. I was going to be there. But I'm afraid I can't because of the restrictions. And now, Dave, it's getting more. We've got to wear, everybody in England has to wear a hard hat, and we have to wear a high-vis jacket everywhere we go now. So, you know, this is the reality, Dave. This is the world I'm living in. You're okay. Are you wearing hard hats in Amsterdam yet?
No, we do wear wooden shoes, but I must say, Roger, that hard hat suits you. I mean, you look great even in a hard hat, but I'm looking forward to meet you once again here in Europe or whether it's in the UK. But we will hear and see you during this event. Later on, you have a Q&A in depth with André. But before we move on, let's go and let's get started by introducing the CEO of EVBox. EVBox, as you know, the global leader in charging solutions for electric vehicles and related cloud services. Here is Christophe Vereenhoven.
Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. We thank you for taking the time today for this special edition of Revolution Digital. While the world is changing, Revolution is also evolving with its time. The annual conference turned into a expanded towards new Revolution Digital events, a bi-weekly Revolution podcast, and a year-round community initiatives. Digital allows us to open the borders and to connect today to every corner in the world. Electric mobility is a global concern, and it's a gratitude to see new international players contributing on a daily basis for a more sustainable future. Revolution is a movement that encourages people to share ideas and solutions which are accelerating the transition towards a zero-emission mobility. We are proud to welcome worldwide experts, mobility experts, and thought leaders that participate in engaging conversations about various topics, developments, and trends in the e-mobility industry. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome you here at Go West, the new headquarters of EVBox, still located in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, which I call the Silicon Valley of the EV charging industry worldwide. The space is dedicated to collaboration and innovation. And with the EVBox lab, including a testing paddock, it will allow our hardware teams to think, to create, and to test in the best conditions. All of this in a green and luminous environment, a sign of an optimistic and sustainable vision and future. While the industry is readjusting, we found it essential to continue the education of professionals on the current topics in our e-mobility industry and to engage with our partners in a way that we can keep this machine moving forward, because this industry is on the move. So now let's start. I have the pleasure to welcome and to introduce Sharon Dijksma, Deputy Mayor of the City of Amsterdam, a driving force behind Amsterdam 2030, a plan to ban diesel and gasoline vehicles from the city. Please, Sharon, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be with us on this special edition of Revolution. Over to you.
Hello everybody, I'm all here in Amsterdam, and that has to do obviously with the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, which has hit the world hard, but also the city of Amsterdam. We are vulnerable not only when it comes to the health issue, but also if you look at our city economically. We are depending heavily on tourists, for instance, and they are not here at the moment. But at the same time, we have learned during this pandemic that, for instance, striving for better health and clean air is something that is still very necessary. And that means that our plans for improvement of air quality are still at place. And that we even feel more pressure, I would say, to make the next steps. And to do that, we need you, because we cannot do it as a municipality on our own. We need to tempt people to buy electric cars. We need to provide, for instance, with charging points. We need to have a strategy on sharing mobility. And with all this, your companies could help us out. So I hope you would like to do that, and I hope that we will see each other face to face next year in Amsterdam. Thank you.
It's a great honor to introduce the next keynote speaker. It's André Bursberg. And André is a special type of guy. He is an entrepreneur with a great passion for exploration. And that exploration drive is matched by his persistence to make economic, environment, and spiritual change. It's a great honor to introduce André. So, André Bursberg, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. When we were starting building Solar Impulse, our solar-powered airplane, which we're going to fly around the world, people often ask us which kind of new technology we were developing. And they were very astonished to hear that at the end, there was none. In fact, we were using what was existing. Electric motors are working since 100 years. Solar cells, you can use them on your rooftop. Batteries, we find them in portable phone, in computers. Maybe we make them a little bit better, but we used what existed. So it was not so much about technology. It was about developing the right mindset. Think about the Wright brothers. They used cloth, wood, to build the airplane. Nothing new. It existed since 3,000 years. What they had to do first, of course, was to believe that it worked, convinced that there was a solution, and of course, the perseverance, the resilience to overcome all the obstacles, all the difficulties, all the challenges. And that's exactly what we had to do with Solar Impulse. And let me take you through a few very interesting situations. First of all, we had to build an airplane which was different from what we can find. It had to be able to fly day and night, so a new paradigm, demonstrating the potential of renewable energy. And to be able to fly day and night, it had to be extremely efficient. And explains why, in fact, it was so big, bigger in terms of wingspan than the wingspan of a 747, and very light. The weight of a car, not exceeding 2 tons. So on one side, we used existing materials like carbon fibers, but on the other side, we had to push the limits further. And when you push the limits, of course, you try not to go over these limits. So let me show you what happened. We were working on the second airplane, on designing the wing of the second aircraft, on building this wing. And the most important part is what we call the wing spar. That's what holds the wing. That's a bit like, our backbone here. It has to be very stiff, very solid, very light. So it's designed, it's simulation, calculation. At the end, it's tested. And here you see these parts loaded with what we could expect the airplane to see when flying in turbulence in heavy winds. So the maximum loads. It's a very emotional moment for engineers because it's what I call the moment of truth. And at the end of the test, which had a duration of about 4 weeks, for the last test, when we got to 100% of the load, suddenly there was a huge noise. Huge explosion. This part so you can imagine the emotion of the entire team, especially of the engineers and designers. It took 1 year, in fact, to build this part. So it was clear that we needed another year, in fact, to rebuild it, if we understood why it happened. And 1 year at this time costed us about 10 million, so a lot of money for a small organization. So it was clear we had a financial problem. It was clear we had a technical problem. We had to understand why, in fact, we went over these limits. And we had an emotional problem. We had a psychological problem. You know, you lose faith, you lose confidence, and you don't know where you are anymore. So it was a huge question mark. So I was there, and I was thinking, my God, we lost a year. How are we going to do it? And after a few days, and I like to walk in the woods when I need